People everywhere are starting to listen to him. He's going on French, British, Italian, Japanese television.
This is the Wide World of Weingarten.
Welcome back, Wide World of Weingarten. Wide World of Weingarten, episode 36. It's Wednesday, December 15th here in Los Angeles. Just after 2 o'clock, it is National Signing Day in the NFL. Hold on one second. Special guest appearance for signing day. Oh, sorry. Say hello, buddy. Got a special guest appearance here for National Signing Day. So biggest day of the year, one of the biggest days of the year in college football. It's where future gets decided, where everything starts to happen. You get your recruiting classes. I used to care a lot about college recruiting. I even worked for Rivals, for the USC Rivals website for a very brief time, a long time ago. It was the year Reggie Bush was on the team. They lost the national championship to Texas right before I started UC Irvine. Actually, it was 2005, I think. But I used to care a lot about college recruiting. It was a big deal. It was the era of the Rivals message boards, which still exist, still produce great content. But with the advent of social media and Twitter, the recruiting game got weird as shit, as I would say, and I got out of it about the time Pete Carroll bolted USC. I was busy in college. I just didn't have the time to pay attention to it anymore, but I used to really be into it. And I think one of the benefits of seriously following recruiting, if you do it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years straight, you learn about all the players. You follow the process of them going from college to from high school to college, and then college to the pro leagues, mostly the NFL, but also in some cases the CFL certainly helps with that as well. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen somebody pop up in the CFL and I've gone, oh yeah, I know that guy from something I scouted 5 years earlier in college, and he's getting a shot in the CFL finally. But you follow through with these names. You track them for 4 or 5 years. You follow them to the draft. You know who's good. You know who's being overlooked. And more and more people do it now. It used to be a much smaller community of people doing draft stuff, but now it's super mainstream. But if you really do follow this stuff for years and years on end, you'll eventually be rewarded. You'll win a Rookie of the Year bet. You'll find a Russell Wilson, and you'll bet the Seahawks to win the division at a huge number before the season, and everyone will ask you why you're a genius. Those things do happen. I remember Dak Prescott won Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year one year, huge numbers because nobody knew he was going to be the starter. All sorts of stuff pops up if you follow recruiting and you follow the class all the way to the draft. You follow multiple classes to the draft. So I guess some of my advice is, if you want to be good at betting on football, start following recruiting now, and if you put enough work in, 5 or 6 years from now, you'll make some money. But nobody really wants to do that. So I don't know how practical that advice is, but if you're 17 or 18, that's a really good way to get started in gambling, whether you know you're doing it or not. I gained a lot of experience working for the USC Rivals site for a brief amount of time, and I got access to the message boards where I learned a lot of stuff, or at least I killed a lot of time, but I did learn a lot about recruiting, and I think it benefited me. So the big news on signing day, I'm not going to go through any classes or talk about signing day in a lot of detail, because the people who care about it follow their own teams and know what's going on already. But the big news is Travis Hunter, the number 1 prospect in the country out of Georgia, flipped from Florida State University to Jackson State. Unbelievable, unless you've heard me talk about Jackson State probably several times on this show if you've listened before. If this is your first time, congratulations on making a great decision. But Deion Sanders, Jackson State, flipped the number 1, number 2 ranked recruit in the country. I don't know if he's number 1 or number 2. It doesn't really make a big difference to me. But flipped him from Florida State. I don't think a HBCU has ever flipped a top 5 recruit from a Power 5 school, let alone a Florida State like that. So great day for Deion Sanders, great day for Jackson State University, and great day for the city of Jackson. Congratulations, everybody. Say hello to my dog again. He's guest starring in this episode, I suppose. He wanted to sit on my lap. He was barking a lot when I started. But yeah, Jackson State, they play South Carolina State in the Celebration Bowl on Saturday. It's one of the first 7 bowl games of the bowl season. It's the only bowl to feature FCS teams. It's the Celebration Bowl. It's the championship between the Mid-East Athletic Conference and the Southwest Athletic Conference, the SWAC. It's the 2 major historically black college universities conferences, the HBCUs, as I refer to them, as everybody refers to them. They're playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and the game is sold out, which is actually pretty cool. If you think about it, I was there for the Super Bowl, 70,000 people, 71,000 people. They have sold the same amount of tickets for Jackson State versus South Carolina State. I look forward to betting that. It's going to be a big game, going to be an interesting game. Deion Sanders returning to Atlanta, where he started his NFL career with the Falcons, where he played in the World Series for the Braves. Unrelated note, I don't have the card on me, but his 89 rookie scorecard is one of my favorite cards. Maybe I'll get one so we can talk about that this week or next week. But Deion Sanders doing some big things in college football, building a program at a historically black college, Jackson State, making them relevant. It's been fun to watch. I made a pretty decent amount of money betting on them this year. I've talked about it a little bit on Twitter on this show. The Celebration Bowl, it's on Saturday. Like I said, it's going to be a sellout, one of the 7 games to start bowl season. I bet under 42.5 points. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than that. I will even look at some of the alternate unders when they start popping up. But under 42.5 minus 110, Jackson State for me in the Celebration Bowl is my first bet of bowl season. We'll go through the rest of the bowl games tomorrow. College basketball tonight, I have one bet. As I mentioned, I do not bet nearly as much college basketball as I used to. I consider myself essentially retired from betting college basketball, which means I don't bet it daily. I don't bet the conference schedule like I used to. I used to bet Big West every conference day for decent amounts of money. Now I might follow a couple games, but not nearly as serious as I used to, but I still do participate in what I call special situations betting, and special situations also include Wednesday night and there's nothing else going on and UC Irvine's playing. So I did find a bet on the Irvine USC game. I bet under 127.5. Under 127 is also acceptable. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Irvine can go several minutes without scoring. They do that frequently. They're a well-conditioned team, but not a major offensive threat. I've been watching them for a very long time, probably close to 10 years now. Watched several different classes come through, and I still bet a lot of their games, just not for nearly as much money as I used to. But under 127.5 versus USC. I like that tonight. I know Alan Boston tweeted he likes plus 11, plus 11.5. I don't have a problem with that either, but I personally like the under better. So that's my bet for tonight in college basketball. There will be occasional college basketball bets, but don't expect to break the bank with these. But zot as they say at Irvine, my alma mater. And I'm gonna take a break real quick, and then we're gonna come back with some listener questions with me and my co-host. So we're taking a break. Welcome back. Just took a break. Wide World of Weingarten. Today I am going to answer questions from listeners or viewers if you're watching this on YouTube, I guess, but I'm referring to it as listeners. So first question, Paul asks, Jonathan Taylor, MVP? My answer is probably not, but check back after the Patriots-Colts game. Last year, Derrick Henry lost any chance he had at winning MVP. When the Titans lost to the Packers late in the season, got blown out, he didn't really contribute in the game. So I expect the Colts would need to win. Taylor would have to have a touchdown or two to seriously vault into MVP consideration. Obviously, Belichick knows Taylor's the guy he's going to need to stop, so game plan's going to be to stop Jonathan Taylor this week. I don't think he's going to win MVP. We'll talk about that more at the end of the show. Alex asks, thoughts on Coach of the Year? Belichick, the favorite. Seems boring if Eagles win 3 divisional games and sneak into wild card spot. Nick Sirianni, 50-1 plus 5,000. Great question. I actually bet some Sirianni myself, 45-1 a week or two ago. I was a little disappointed when they lost that last game. I thought it was very winnable, but now they get a bye week. They come back. They have 3 division games, 4 weeks. They probably need to win all 3 of those, if not all 4 of those, which would mean ending the season on a winning streak and beating the Cowboys. If you think the Eagles go 4-0, I'd probably open some money line parlays and roll over the Eagles money lines last 4 weeks of the season. I do like the bet. I have it myself. But I think he's in that group. I think he's in that same group, sort of. If you like that 4-0 thesis, I think Brian Flores fits the same sort of profile. I think Andy Reid fits the same sort of profile. Any coach that's going to win their next 4 games likely has a chance. So we'll talk. There were actually a bunch of questions about Coach of the Year. So I suppose we'll talk about that more in a minute. Next question. Do you think Micah Parsons could win Defensive Player of the Year as well as Defensive Rookie of the Year? Well, he's a lock for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that's settled. If I had a book, I'd probably even do a promo payout on that now and say, congratulations, here's your money. You don't have to wait till the week before the Super Bowl. But I think he's overpriced for Defensive Player of the Year right now at plus 350, which isn't to say he's not deserving of consideration. But I don't see how he should be plus 350 and Aaron Donald should be 8-1. I'd flip those numbers around personally. Micah Parsons is good, but we should really be careful before we anoint him the second coming of Lawrence Taylor, especially when Aaron Donald already is the best player in the NFL at the moment, the best defensive player in the NFL at the moment. Excuse me, not the best player in the NFL. Aaron Donald deserves more Defensive Player of the Year consideration. So no, I don't think Parsons has a very big shot at winning, but I think he deserves consideration. I think he will be a short price next year. He has a better chance to win next year. Next question: Brady MVP price short considering rest of season schedule. The strength of schedule for the Bucks the rest of the season is the easiest in the NFL. That's what Davis is referring to in this question. I would prefer to take a shot against Brady. I mentioned that on Gill's show this morning, but his stats speak for themselves. Voters look at the stats. They don't drill down deeper into them and look at box scores necessarily. And 36 touchdowns going into the final 4 games, leading the NFL in passing yards, is setting Brady up as a deserving favorite. Unfortunately, even when you look into the numbers like I've done, and I've sort of highlighted some of the games that they've lost and had close games, like when they beat the Patriots on a late field goal, he didn't play that well. He was matched by Mac Jones in that game. He didn't outplay Matt Stafford in a loss. I don't think he played well when they lost to the Saints, but you can't argue that they're going to potentially be the number 1 seed, and he's Tom Brady, so he gets sort of a bump in the sense that voters have some sort of, just they love Tom Brady. Everybody loves Tom Brady. I personally, like I've said on the last couple shows, I talked about on a numbers game, I have money on Cooper Kupp. Most of my other MVP bets are basically drawing dead against Tom Brady, so I haven't hedged, but when you ask if I think the price is short, no, I think it's fair. I think it's fair at minus 175. That's kind of where Circa's hovering around. So you're not getting much of a deal there. Everyone knows that the strength schedule is easy. I'm personally gonna try to find a good price against him, and I already have, I think, with Cooper Kupp. So this is really a lot of this stuff I'm looking forward to reassessing next week after we see this is a big weekend for a lot of this stuff, especially with all the COVID stuff going around. So On to the next question. Anything out there with long odds that you might take a flyer on now with increased variance because of COVID? Not really. I think I saw some Broncos to win the AFC at 75-1. I bet like $100 on that if you're looking for like a really big long shot. I haven't seen a ton of team futures that really stood out this late in the season. I bet some Patriots like 12-1 before they really got into this winning streak. I mentioned the Steelers last week and they lost. I keep coming back to the Steelers and thinking they're worth another look, but Big Ben Roethlisberger's just looked so bad and inconsistent. I don't know if I really just want to lose more money with them. So yeah, I bet a little bit on the Broncos, 75-1 to win the AFC. I think there's a weird situation where there could be like a three-way tie in that division. If the cards all fall a certain way, chips fall a certain way, but yeah, beyond that, no, not really. I don't see a ton of value farther down the list on anything, and I don't know how to handicap COVID stuff before it happens. I just know how to react to COVID news. With the Browns' COVID outbreak, could you see Garrett losing Defensive Player of the Year? And if so, who should we target? Yes, I could absolutely see him lose Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's a worthy candidate, but my main concern is that he's potentially on a non-playoff team, and this was my concern before the COVID outbreak. I'm more worried about that now that they're a 1.5-point underdog to the Raiders. If he does, if the Browns don't make the playoffs, I think Aaron Donald, who I mentioned before at 8-1, is worth another shot. Mainly because he's 8-1, he's the best player in the NFL, the best defensive player in the NFL, and no disrespect to the sack numbers of T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett, but there's more to winning awards than just having the best gross numbers. Putting up sacks necessarily in blowouts late in the game when the game's already decided isn't as important to me as seeing how Aaron Donald played on Monday night, how he was the guy who took over the game. He was creating the pressure that created the interceptions. He was causing havoc. He had 3 sacks. For me, that stuff just stands out more. I don't know. I've been anti-Garrett all season. I think I respect the fact that he's up there, but I personally don't agree with a lot of the Defensive Player of the Year market rankings right now. I think Aaron Donald is double the price he should be. So that's the main guy I'd target. Beyond that, I don't think you really have to look farther down. Otherwise, you're really just there's a group of 4 or 5 guys right now that are serious contenders. I think Donald is the best of all of them, best number of all of them. And then next question, with Kupp getting MVP looks, it's probably the right time to hedge out of Taylor at 20-1 Offensive Player of the Year. They're basically dead heat on Offensive Player of the Year current odds, but have to assume if Kupp is in the MVP race, then he's locked up for OPOY Offensive Player of the Year. You're right and you're wrong. I'd wait until next week, but when you say it's dead heat for Offensive Player of the Year, but you have to assume if Kupp is in the MVP race, well, if you look at Circa, who I tend to look at as one of the better and more respectable books out there for gauging the market on these numbers, they have Cooper Kupp today like 75-1, 80-1 for MVP. They have Jonathan Taylor like 14-1. So I'd argue they're both in the MVP race, and that according to Circa, Taylor is ahead of Kupp. I don't necessarily agree with that myself. I think you can make an argument that Kupp's as high as fourth most valuable behind Brady, Rodgers, and I wanted to say Kyler Murray, but I think I meant Matt Stafford earlier this week. I think you can make an argument that he's somewhere between like 4th, 5th, maybe if you're really not as aggressive as I am, he's still in the top 10 for MVP. Taylor's there too. I'd wait until next week because you get this Patriots matchup. A lot could change. If Taylor has a big game against the Patriots, I would expect to see his MVP and Player of the Year odds drop, but I'm more invested in Kupp at the moment. I have money on both of them, and I have some other ideas for how to play these markets. I'm not done doing it yet, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on Offensive Player of the Year and talk about it more probably tomorrow, probably definitely more next week. But these awards are far from settled with 4 weeks to go. Don't think that anything is as settled as you think it might be, with the exception of Micah Parsons and I think Mac Jones, but definitely Micah Parsons. Brian Flores live for Coach of the Year if Finns win out. Absolutely. I think I talked about that yesterday. I wrote about it this week for Point Spread Weekly. He is absolutely live for Coach of the Year if Finns win out. Dolphins 10-point favorites against the Jets this week. I'd like to see them get back to 500. If they do, in fact, win out, if that happens, they would be 2-0 versus the Patriots, plus a 9-game win streak after a 7-game losing streak. Brian Flores finished runner-up last year, and I think the Dolphins still would need to sneak into the playoffs. But if you look at the resume at the end of the season with a 4-game win streak to add to their current win streak, after losing, they're at 6 games right now. I think they're I think it's a 6-game win streak. But after losing 7 straight games to finish the season winning 9 straight games, I think that would put them in serious contention with the 2 wins over the Patriots. I've already bet that myself. I did not get the best numbers out there, but I did get some good numbers. I'd still win a lot of money, but I would not win the most money. If Kansas City wins the next 4 games, gets the number 1 seed, and wins because the defense leads the team, can Andy win Coach of the Year 100-1 on FanDuel? Yes. If it would appear that the first thing that needs to happen is a win Thursday night versus the Chargers, where they're currently 3-point favorites. But if the Chargers win on Thursday night, Staley would be 2-0 versus Andy Reid this year, and the Chargers would have the inside track to win the division. If the Chiefs win, it would be their 7th straight win, and they'd be on track for potentially the number 1 seed, depending on what happens with the Patriots this weekend. So you ask, is 100-1 good? It's all right. I think 150-1 at BetMGM is better. A Chiefs win this Thursday. Tomorrow, we would see this number come down a little bit. If you kind of look at it and you're thinking, well, Bill Belichick's a candidate, okay, so I guess Andy Reid should be a candidate too, if we're just using that criteria. And again, I've said this so many times already, but if you're using Bill Belichick's winning with a rookie quarterback and all these free agents he signed and the guys he's drafted the last couple of years, I agree with you, that's great, but that award is General Manager of the Year, which Bill Belichick is also the General Manager of the Patriots. Coach of the Year should go to one of these guys who's doing more with less. No offense that I've said, again, I've also said this before, but New England's not a situation where Bill Belichick is doing more with less. He has every advantage under the sun. And in New England, so I've talked about this as much as I can. I love Bill Belichick. He should be the Coach of the Year every year, but we're going to give this award to somebody who's improved their team and created a winner out of nothing. And I absolutely think Brian Flores is a guy who could win this award still. My money's on him. I'd really like that to happen, actually. So another Brian Flores question. You mentioned Flores Coach of the Year. One reason, because he has a chance to beat Belichick week 18 and then make the playoffs. What about Frank Reich, 25-1, who can beat Belichick this week and all but guarantee a playoff appearance for Indy? You're right. Very, very true. But my advice again, 25-1. Why take 25-1 when you could take 60-1 at Circa? So if you're in a state where you have Circa available, I would definitely take the 60-1 at that price. He's very much alive for Coach of the Year. You're right, especially after the weak start to the season, to right the ship and get them in this position puts Reich definitely in contention. I don't have any money on him. I'm not jumping on him just because I already have enough positions in this market, but I don't oppose that. If you think the Colts are going to beat the Patriots this year, that's a very good spot to jump in on. The next question here we got, any chance Jalen Waddle could win Rookie of the Year? I took him 30-1 in the preseason. Well, you could take him like 66-1 now, or there's some big numbers out there. So no, I don't think there's much of a chance. I don't think he's scored enough touchdowns, to be honest. I think he has 4 touchdowns on the season. That's not gonna win him Offensive Rookie of the Year. If you do think he's gonna have a turbocharged last 4 weeks of the season and somehow jump into contention, I think you'd make more money betting Jalen Waddle to score 3 or more touchdowns on a weekly basis. I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying he's going to need 2 touchdowns every week the rest of the season to really jump in this race. I'm sorry. NFL market for most passing yards. Stafford currently 230 yards behind Tom Brady. Stafford has 3 dome games and 3 bottom third passing defenses remaining. Thank you for that. That's also positive for Cooper Kupp. Bucks playing blowout games the rest of the season, along with possible clinch number 1 seed before Week 18. Seeing 5-1 to 6-1. Think there's a bit of value, but curious on your thoughts. I do think there's a bit of value. Thank you for pointing out that Stafford has 3 dome games and 3 of the bottom third passing teams. If I'm correct, the 4th game is at the Ravens, who are playing with a very depleted secondary as well. So even better. All of these matchups are positive for Stafford down the stretch. I think that sets up nicely for potential MVP odds for Stafford, for Cooper Kupp, and for that over. It's not the over, the most passing yards for Stafford to overtake Brady. But the issue here, the thing to keep in mind, I think Tom Brady is a little bit of a stat patter. He's definitely a guy who knows his own stats. If you ask him, he can tell you all his numbers. He likes to score. He likes the records. And if you notice some of the blowouts this year, there have been a couple times where I've been like, wow, I can't believe Tom Brady's still in the game this late in this blowout. Like the Dolphins came to mind. I think he threw two touchdowns in the 4th quarter when the game was already absolutely out of hand. I think he tries to pad his numbers, and he does that on purpose, and Bruce Arians lets him. That's part of being Tom Brady. And you'd think they'd be conservative with him in blowouts down the stretch to preserve him for the playoffs, but I don't think that's going to happen. So you really gotta keep that in mind. But I think if Stafford does overtake Brady, instead of betting 5-1 or 6-1, I think I would bet Stafford to win MVP. I'm personally not sold on Brady winning the MVP with 4 weeks left, but I understand the number. I understand you have to make him a -175 favorite to at least prevent more people from betting, on him, and you're not getting balance action on a lot of other guys. Jason, if you have time on the podcast, can you explain how you would hedge a futures bet on the Chargers plus 140 to win the division? I used a Caesars $5,000 free bet on that about a month ago, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to lock in some money. I have the Chiefs -160 money line Thursday available, and Chargers plus 220 to win the division. I believe it comes down to this game, although there is an outside shot on the Broncos and a chance Kansas City wins out after losing Thursday and LA loses another game, and then the tiebreaker doesn't come into play. I've looked at a couple of those situations myself. There's some funky AFC stuff, some math to consider. You're right there. But I think the way I would hedge that, I had to think about this for a bit, because typically stuff like this, my first answer is don't hedge it. But I think the bet would be Andy Reid Coach of the Year at 150 to 1 at BetMGM. If you have access to that, if they win this game, you're going to see that Andy Reid number drop, I think, significantly, depending on what else happens this weekend, especially with the Patriots. Could see that Andy Reid number, down to 40 to 1, 50 to 1, maybe even less than that next week. But there's only one division game left for KC after the Chargers game, so beating the Chargers would set up KC to really beat up on these other teams down the stretch and potentially even play for the number 1 seed, like you mentioned. The Chargers play the Broncos, and they're at the Raiders the last 2 weeks. The Broncos finished the season with 3 straight division games. Broncos go 4-0. It's possible all three teams finish with 11 wins, I think. I think I'd just let it ride, and I'd bet a little bit on Andy Reid to win Coach of the Year. If the Chiefs win, you get some value. I don't think the AFC gets settled until Week 18. I don't think the AFC West gets settled until Week 18, unless the Chiefs win their final 4 games, in which case Andy Reid will be considered for Coach of the Year. So my advice is either to do nothing and root for the Chargers tomorrow night, or to bet some Andy Reid Coach of the Year, and go from there next week after this Week 15 plays out. What are some precedents for a year like this one with big favorites in Rookie of the Year? Has someone come out of nowhere before in the last 4 weeks? Not really. I mean, someone come out of nowhere. Kyler Murray was a little bit of a dog to Josh Jacobs. I thought the market got that wrong a couple years ago. But these awards tend to be pretty well done. I think Coach of the Year, and I think Coach of the Year has been the most lucrative in season the last couple of years, and I think Offensive Player of the Year. I think nobody knows how to book that, so that's kind of a made up market. But the big favorites in the Rookie of the Year is fairly normal at this point, so I wouldn't expect anyone to really come out of nowhere the last 4 weeks. Not this season. I always root for stuff to come out of nowhere because you can make a lot of money, but it doesn't happen very, very frequently. So that, I think, is most of the questions. There was 1 or 2 I didn't get to. I apologize. Someone sent me a question about UFC odds. I don't know anything about UFC betting, so I couldn't answer that, but I think I got through most of the questions there. So then I want to talk about something I mentioned yesterday. Yesterday I talked about Frank Schwab's article about fading bad teams. He mentioned that the worst 6 teams in the NFL are 1-11 against spread the last 2 weeks. He doesn't think they're good bets going forward. I read that and I immediately was like, no, they're absolutely good bets going forward. That's how you get line value, is bad teams continuing to be really bad. I mean, eventually, you're going to make a team plus 11, you're going to make them plus 13, they're going to lose again, you're going to make them plus 14, plus 15, plus 18, plus 20. I mean, eventually you're going to make something so high that they're going to have to cover a number eventually. So 1-11 against the spread last 2 weeks. I would absolutely expect those teams to be good bets next week. But point again isn't to single out bad advice. It's just to point out that there's a lot of gambling content out there right now. There's a rush to create gambling content, myself included. Everywhere you look, there's daily content that needs to be put out. And sometimes you just get bad advice, and it's not ill-intended a lot of the time. There's a small percent where the people do have ill intentions, but a lot of it is just people trying to get content out there, and sometimes you make simple mistakes that years of gambling is not correct. Like I said, it's not to single anyone out. I might even include myself here if I deserve it, but I hope this is a new reoccurring segment where I take bad advice and I turn it into good advice. So today's bad advice comes from Brad Evans of Bally Sports, who tweeted out earlier today. Prop alert. Jonathan Taylor over 90.5 rush yards versus New England opens minus 114 on FanDuel. Yes, please. Top number in 6 of his last 8, fresh off bye. Nearly locked for 20-plus attempts. New England giving up 4.49 yards per carry and 99.8 rush yards per game to running backs. How is this not in the low 100s? Okay, so I have like a bunch of different things I want to point out here why these numbers are wrong. First off, the 4.9 yards per carry, 99.8 yards per game is skewed because of that Titans game where they blew the Titans out 36-13, and Hilliard, I don't even know his first name, Damon Hilliard maybe, I could be making that up. Hilliard, the backup running back on the Titans, had 136 yards, and Freeman, the other running back, had 109 yards, but it didn't really matter. The Titans rushed for like 270 total yards that game, but they lost 36-13, 20-0 in the second half. So Belichick was happy to let them run on him and said, great, good, whatever, run all you want, didn't matter. So those New England giving up 99.8 rush yards game is absolutely skewed from that game. On their current win streak, the only other running back to go over 100 yards or eclipse that number, I could get close to it, I think was D'Ernest Jackson, one of the two on the Browns. He had 99 yards rushing, but again, that game was an absolute blowout. So I don't like these sorts of bets, especially against the Patriots. Coach of the Year candidate Bill Belichick. I heard he's good at football. Bill Belichick's MO, and the thing you got to know about Bill Belichick and the Patriots, if you don't know any of this stuff already, I hope you do. But Patriots don't run a set defense. They create a new and distinct game plan tailored each week to that week's opponent. So formations, coverage, everything changes based on that week's opponent. And Bill Belichick's first thing he does is take away your best weapon. That's his one of his keys to success is identify the team's best weapon, take them out, and make them beat you with their crappy players. That's like, it's not rocket science. The things that Bill Belichick does a lot of times are very simple, very thinking straightforward. But you want to win, take away the team's best player. So I agree. He's probably a lock for 20 plus carries, and Belichick's saying, great, let your running back carry into my great defensive line 20 times. That's what he wants you to do. I would be very surprised if he gets close to that number. And even better, I would prefer to bet the under on the rushing plus receiving yards under, which I'm sure you could probably get in the triple digits. But like I said, Belichick's core philosophy is take away your weapons, make you beat them with your worst players. Means the defense can be zeroing in on Taylor early and often. And I'm not sure giving him a lot of carries to wear down the Patriots defense is going to work, especially Brad Evans mentioned the bye week. I believe the Patriots are off a bye week too, so conditioning shouldn't be an issue for the Patriots. Shouldn't be an issue for either team. Like I said, I don't think Taylor's going to go over his rushing yards total. I don't think he's going to go over his rushing plus receiving yards total. And most of the other running backs on the current Patriots win streak haven't gone over their rushing yards total, haven't come close to 100 yards, haven't come close to 90 yards, other than a couple games where they were blowouts and the receivers weren't the best players in the offense. But all you got to do is go back and look at a couple of the box scores. For example, Austin Eckler in the Chargers game had 11 carries for 64 yards, held McCaffrey in check. I think he had 52 yards in the Panthers game. I mentioned D'Ernest had 99 yards, but it didn't matter. It was a 45-7 blowout. So congratulations on all those extra garbage yards he got. Versus Atlanta, I took away the best player, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts had 3 receptions for 29 yards, made him beat him with everybody else. Some running back I never heard of ended the game with 39 yards. And then the Titans game I mentioned was a weird game. They had one running back have 131 yards. Foreman had 109, 270 total rushing yards. Kind of skewed all those rushing average numbers. But it was a blowout, 20-0 in the second half, 36-13 total. I don't know what you take away from that. I don't know what you take away from the Bills game 2 weeks ago either. Or I guess it was actually last week, wasn't it? But Bills game was weird with the wind, with the weather. Bills carried 25 times for 99 yards. I think there's a very good chance that Jonathan Taylor will get the 20 carries that Brad Evans speaks of, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere. And if they do go anywhere, I'm very happy that I already have the Offensive Player of the Year bet on Taylor, and the Colts win would shake up the AFC playoff race. It would hurt some of my Patriots futures, but it would shake up the awards and futures market. It would shake up Coach of the Year, and I'm all for chaos because chaos creates good numbers. And a big week from Taylor would also help the Offensive Player of the Year race with Kupp. It would help Kupp's MVP odds potentially. But I don't think I would bet this over. I think what I would do is I would wait for Brad Evans and whoever's following him to bet up these lines, and then I would bet the under. I would bet the under on the rushing yards. I'd bet the under on the rush plus receiving yards, and ideally we can get a couple yards better if Brad Evans has enough people. betting these up. So the Colts might win this game, but I don't think Taylor's going to be the guy to do it. Bill Belichick, like I said, if you're going to beat him, you're going to beat him without your best players carrying the load typically. So that's what I think, and hopefully, I don't know if we'll do it every day, even though there is a lot of bad advice out there. But when I do see bad advice, I'll try to point it out, but I'll try to point it out in a way that we could turn bad advice into good advice. So like I mentioned today, we'll take Taylor under rushing yards, under rushing receiving yards. But if you wait, you could probably get some higher numbers. That'll be on Saturday, same day as Jackson State under 42.5. Then tonight, I said I like the Irvine USC under 127.5 points in college basketball. Beyond that, I don't know. That's my 40 minutes for today. I hope you enjoyed it. My co-host is happy to be here. Say hello to everybody. Yeah, it's my dog Ren. He's great. Thank you for listening. I'll be back probably tomorrow. I guess we'll preview Thursday night football, go over some more futures, talk about the bowl games. A lot of stuff going on nonstop. So thank you for listening. Be back tomorrow.